Greetings everyone, Brett here with Hammerhead Model Making, back with another full build video. Today I will be tackling Tamiya's BF109G-6. There have been plenty of videos already made about this kit and its pretty much amazing and flawless design, so I'm not going to spend too much time going over all the finer points of this build. I'm hoping to try out something new and go with a slightly shorter video format for this build and see what you guys think. So previous to this, I had been working on Italy's F7F Tiger Cat, and I got to a point where I was adding the wing fold conversion and really wasn't happy with how it was turning out, and I was getting quite frustrated with it. And so I decided to set that one aside and work on this kit, which I had in my stash. It also helped that on Instagram, there was a group build going on called Modelmania, #Modelmania. And the theme was obviously aircraft with a mottled paint job. So it kind of worked out that I had this kit, we had the Instagram group build going on, and it just worked out. So I jumped into this one head first, and I was not disappointed that I did. Another thing this kit did for me was to help get my mojo back. With things not turning out the way that I was hoping for or expecting on the Tiger Cat build, and just with life and starting a new job and all these different things kind of taking its toll on me, I really kind of lost that fun sense of why I like to build models. And so going back to a kit like this, where I decided before building it that I would build it out of the box. Nothing new, nothing additional, no aftermarket, no photo etch, no resin, just out of the box. And what's nice about this kit is it gave me the option to build a kit out of the box while still satisfying my need for having a well-detailed kit. The Tamiya kit is, for lack of a better word, brilliant. You get plenty of options. You can have the engine cowls open or closed, and in fact, they give you enough parts to paint up and decal both the open and closed cowls, and even provide magnets for them to attach. So if you get bored of an open cowl, just pop those pieces off, magnetize the other ones on, and now you've got a closed cowl 109. That's really cool. Very few manufacturers offer that. You get your choice of flaps up or down, canopy open or closed, and 3 marking options out of the box. I even chose to use this seat or the decal seatbelt, which really isn't great, but I was building it out of the box. And it was just something I was going to do, and I was going to be happy with it. And ultimately I was. I really liked how it was turning out. The Tamiya kit really has a great breakdown in the way it does parts, so it allows you to paint things up before adding them and in a logical way that makes sense. The other thing that I really liked about this kit, and really new Tamiya kits in general, is because of the way they do the engineering, there's very few seam lines that you have to actually sand out. The BF109 is a little bit special because on the real aircraft, it had a top center seam line and a bottom center seam line. So normally when you're gluing 2 halves of the fuselage together, you would sand out and clean up the seam line on the top and bottom. But with the 109, you don't have to do that. So that actually kind of saves some steps. I found really the only places that I needed to sand out seam lines were at the very front of the wings and the wing roots, and that was really it. So as far as sanding goes, there was very little, and I always like it when there's very little sanding. If I had to pick one detractor from this kit, it would be the lack of rivet detail. When you have contemporaries like Eduard putting out pretty similar kits, and I believe Zvezda has a 109G6 kit as well, that offers rivet detail, it kind of makes you think like, well, they could have taken this kit one step further, and instead of just being a brilliant kit, they could have made it pretty much a flawless kit if it had had that rivet detail. However, we also live in an age where we have tools that allow us to rivet a model kit. So ultimately, if you choose to add the rivets, you can, and just bump up the awesome factor on your kit just that much. I chose not to. Again, just building out of the box. Didn't want to have to spend the time doing all that on this kit. And another thing that I really enjoyed about this kit, the clear parts were very thin and just crystal clear. I was blown away. So now we're finally moving on to painting the fuselage of the aircraft. And I wanted to try a new to me paint brand. So here I'm using AK Interactive acrylics. And what was nice about one of the reasons I chose to use these paints is because I bought it in a set that came with all of the correct RLM colors specifically for the markings I would be making from this kit. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me to pull that off the shelf at the local hobby shop and give it a try. Ultimately, I think I need more practice with it. It worked differently than like the MIG paints and the Tamiya paints and the Vallejo paints that I'm used to. I found that it was really difficult to get the correct consistency when thinning the paint. It was either too thin, and I really had to layer multiple layers of paint on to get a good solid coverage, or it was coming out grainy. And but again, I don't necessarily think that's the fault of the paint, more just my inexperience using it. I will continue giving it a try. I do have a couple other German aircraft that I can use these paints on specifically, but I'm sure I will expand my library of paints to include more from this range. But I did feel that the actual colors were really spot on, and I was really pleased with how they look. In deciding to build this kit out of the box, I also made the choice that I was going to dial back my weathering. You saw that I did put on a marble coat over the black base, and really just trying to keep it within the panel lines. But ultimately, I really over coated that marble coat quite a bit, so it was very, very barely noticeable. And that was intentional on my part. I really wanted to try and go for this cleaner build, cleaner aircraft. The few reference pictures that I could find of this aircraft never really looked like it was overly dirty or, under maintained. So I really was trying hard to keep the weathering to a minimum and just kind of go straight for a build. Plus, it also helped that I was using new paints to me that I wasn't sure how they would work on coverage. And here we're getting to the whole point of the group build that I was part of, the actual modeling effect on the aircraft. Ultimately, I'm happy with how it turned out. I think it could have been better, but I can live with it. The other thing that I had a little bit of trouble with was matching the color on the tail band. And I tried some different experiments and finally got a good mix for the color that I liked. But I had to use Vallejo because that's what I had. But ultimately, I think the actual color turned out pretty much spot on, at least compared to the paint guide from the kit. With all the main painting done, the build progressed as normal. I added a gloss coat in preparation for decals and doing a panel wash. Decals are my next big gripe of this kit. I know that Tamiya is typically known for having overly thick decals. I feel like this kit in particular, and I compare this to some of the other recent Tamiya kits that I built, they were really difficult to work with. And I really struggled to get these decals to settle down into panel lines and conform to the curved surfaces. I was using Microsol Microset, I was using Tamiya Mark Fit, and I was using my Walther Solvaset, which is rather aggressive when it comes to decal setting solutions. And it literally took the combination of all three of those to finally get some of these decals to settle down. And even then, I was scoring every decal along panel lines and really just doing everything I could, every trick in the book to get these to work. If I were to build this kit again, which I definitely will, I will go with an aftermarket decal. That would be essential for this kit. But I really liked the marking options in the kit. So, and again, I made that commitment to build this out of the box, and I was going to see it through to the end. So I finally got through it and was able to make it work. Another quick gloss coat over the decals, and I was ready to move on to doing a panel wash. For the panel washing, I've really started liking the Ammo by MIG washes. They're so much easier to work with, in my opinion, than like the Tamiya panel washes. And it comes in some really great colors. And I know you've seen me use this color on some of my other builds. It's really just kind of the best combination of dark and grimy and dirty and gritty without being so dark like a black would be, for example. And again, the cleanup is really easy. Once it's dry, then you simply wipe it off with, here I'm using a paper towel. If you're trying to get to hard to reach places, use a Q-tip or a cotton bud, and it works really, really fantastic. Next up was to add a satin varnish. I chose to do a satin varnish instead of a matte varnish, as I wanted to maintain just a little bit of shine that you find on true to scale aircraft. And the Vallejo satin varnish really did the trick for me. I really liked how it looked, how it turned out, and it was exactly what I was going for. Another new product that I was using here is the Molotow chrome pen, and to do the oleo struts on the landing gear. And I've seen other modelers do this. I've seen it done, and finally ordered myself one. And I am I am really happy I did, because it looks amazing, and it blew my mind how good it looks when it comes to replicating that polished metal look for the landing gear. Unfortunately, it gets covered up and you don't actually see it. But I was happy with how it turned out. I know it's there, and I thought it looked great. So earlier I said I wanted to minimize the weathering that I put onto this kit. However, knowing that actual wartime conditions meant that aircraft weren't going to be maintained perfectly, I did try to add just a little bit of weathering here. Here I'm doing a little bit of paint chipping, just kind of around access hatches and places where crew and the pilot would have been, touching the airplane often along the wing route and such. I decided to add some weathering pigment for the landing gear. I typically don't tend to use weathering pigments very much. I find that they're hard to control and really easy to get messy, especially in places that you don't want it to get. But this kit really kind of ended up just being a vehicle for trying new things, and ultimately in the end, I was happy with how it turned out. And here's another fun point about the engineering of the Tamiya kit is it has this panel that covers these very large connection points to the landing gear. And these connection points have such a solid contact that it's almost impossible to get the angle and orientation of the landing gear wrong. And that is awesome. That really makes me happy. Moving on to the exhaust, I am using Citadel washes for the exhaust. And over the last probably 2 years, this has really become my go-to for doing exhaust stains. It requires a lot of thin layers. The Citadel washes are really thin, but they're also very translucent, and so it's really easy to get a good look with these washes. And this is straight out of the airbrush. I don't even dilute this at all, but still be able to see that there's something underneath it. So initially I used a brown shade called Agrax Earth Shade, and then did a little bit more concentrated towards the exhaust with their Nuln oil, which is black. I also decided just to add a little bit of weathering along the panel lines with some oil paints. I know this isn't terribly realistic, but I really like the look, and it kind of just gives it a sense that it is dirty and that it is well used, and I like it. It's an artistic choice. It's not necessarily a choice that is realistic, but I like it. I always find removing the window masking to be very satisfying, and it's made especially more satisfying knowing that Tamiya provides really nice window masks in the kit, so you don't have to fiddle with masking tape and whatnot. And they fit flawlessly, and really happy with how they turned out. So at this point, the majority of the kit is done. It's really just kind of a matter of adding all the details on and getting this thing all wrapped up. I really think this kit looks the part, and out of the box is a phenomenal kit. There are a few things you could do to just really elevate this kit. Like I mentioned before, adding rivet detail would be a huge thing for this kit. The engine, while nice and definitely looks the part, really could use some plumbing, wires and hoses and lines and whatnot to really make it pop. And maybe a little bit of photo etch in the cockpit would help, but honestly, it's it's great. So if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you sticking around and taking a look. I had a lot of fun building this kit, and I have a really exciting project that I can't wait to show you guys next month. I'm working on it right now, and I will try to do a couple smaller videos in between. But please look forward to my next full build video at the beginning of December. And if you ever have any questions or comments, please put them down in the comment section below. I really enjoy interacting with you and answering questions or shooting the breeze, whatever. So leave me a message, say hi, whatever. I am more than happy to converse, and I really appreciate everybody that has subscribed so far. I've been really encouraged and excited to see how much this channel has grown. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.